Hello and welcome. So today I want to share, we're at the conclusion of wokestravaganza 2026 and we had two participants. Believe it or not, it's actually the reuniting of the trinity of nonprofits that was formed earlier this year on an old school RuneScape hardcore Iron Man group account. And it warms my heart because I had a small falling out in the past with a group, and I didn't feel great about it. And, you know, life goes on. And so, anyway, we're not here to talk about my problems. We're here to talk about a day in the life, because honestly, my days are most like other people's, you know? In terms of like how my worries and concerns are spent, I feel like most people have similar, you know, normal, rational, average points of view. You know, you kind of like, you're not like way out there, but like you're also not like one of, you know, we're not like those people, at least. We kind of like play with them. I mean, there was that one dude in the last video. He comments, oh yeah, I'm all about free speech. And then his next post is, maybe if you wanted people to agree with you more, you shouldn't talk bad about their leader because their leader is really important to them. And by the way, I don't like immigrants. Oh my goodness, dude. Like, you could have fucking just left it at the first post. And you know, I don't really know how to handle people with that degree of ignorance that just are so blind to how they behave. You would never believe some of the shit white people say behind closed doors that's just passed off as like, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with the world. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Give these people like 10 seconds and a microphone and they'll show you who they are. They don't try and hide it. I mean, that's not really about a day in the life. We're talking about the trans day of visibility. And I'm trans. I don't think I have to prove my identity very much. I mean, we all know a man's job is to provide, and my job is an electronics technician, so not even close, baby. Especially, I work for a public school district, so you know I'm not providing for anyone. Although, now that I say it, a lot of fucking guys aren't actually that great of providers either. I mean, you know, and I don't mean to be, oh, well, not all guys. I was raised by a single dad for a lot of the point, and I saw my mom every other weekend, which was nice. But when people ask why I tend to not be as feminine presenting as a lot of trans women are, I would describe it as I'm more of along the lines of like a tomboy style where, you know, I'm a woman, but like, unless you're trying to like bang me, you don't need to be talking about my genitals and stuff. Like, there are certain levels of just basic respect. And I mean, even again, in the comments, some trans person comes in and goes, oh, well, I can tell what your genitals are. And it's like, okay, well, hey, you know, as a trans person, you should be pretty aware of how dysphoria works. So the fact you come in and just throw it at me, that's a little weird. Anyway, that's not about a day in the life. We're here to talk about how I'm actually a really normal, productive member of society and not whatever the news and everyone's saying, because we're gonna get woke. I'm gonna red pill everyone, and the real red pill, the best red pill of all, Marxist-Leninism. I tell you what, because when you understand capitalism as a structure, and you understand that under the capital industrial complex and the mechanisms by which it forces us to live, okay, so every day I wake up of my own free will at probably like 4:30 or 5. That's my pupperino, Rowan. She's a cute little dog, and she likes to wake me up around that time to let me know, oh, hey, it's, you know. And so we go and take care of business, and then usually I'll go to Royal Farms and get myself like a chicken sandwich and a Monster Energy drink. And I know they're not good for me. And also, the price of Monster Energy drinks keeps going up. They're at like probably like $6 for 2 of them. And honestly, if we're talking in terms of like how many hours I gotta work, that's a quarter of an hour worth of pay. That's 15 minutes right there I gotta work to drink 2 Monster Energy drinks, because you gotta have 2. And then, I mean, you can't just have Monster Energy drinks on their own. You gotta have something substantial to put with it. And I have to eat something so I can take my antidepressants, because without those, I'd probably be a complete wreck. Believe it or not, as much as I seem like a wreck on this channel sometimes, you're capturing glimpses into the window of my life, not my whole life. So, I eat a chicken sandwich alongside my Monsters and take them with my medications. And after that, I return to my home because, you know, I'm on my way home eating a chicken sandwich and drinking a Monster, and then I get home and it took a lot of energy to drive home, so I gotta have another Monster. And after feeling like Norman Reedus in that Death Stranding game before, like, you know what? I never even played Death Stranding. It looked like a big old walking simulator. And then game companies, they ask for like 80, 90 bucks a game. Could you believe that? 90 bucks a game. We are talking 3.5 hours worth of pay? 3.5 hours worth of pay. Nearly 4 hours worth of pay. And if we're talking about taxes, we're not even talking about my tax rate, because if we're talking taxes, honestly, we're probably talking closer to like 4.5, 5 hours. And don't even get me started on these fucking tax returns. I swear to goodness, when I was a child, I would do my tax returns and I'd get big old refunds and I'd be happy. And then I become an adult, and all of a sudden now I'm getting like 20 bucks back. And I'm like, okay, so they teach me how to fill out the paperwork, and now that I fill it out right, I don't get a cool little check from the government every year. That being said, back to getting home for the morning. On most mornings, I find myself of my own free will and just completely sporadically deciding to rent 8 hours of my labor to my place of employment. Now, you can't rent 8 hours directly. You have to charge 8 hours, and then they're actually getting 8.5 hours, because they're gonna give you half an hour to, like, you know, that necessary thing humans have to do? It's really inconvenient to places of work, but it's called eating. Oh, geez, don't try and do that on company time, because if the company has to pay you to eat, oh, goodness, your life is not the company's responsibility, okay? They just pay for you to live long enough that they can write a job that makes you replaceable enough that they can hire someone to do it cheaper. And if they can't hire someone to do it cheaper, they'll make a computer that can calculate an easier way to do it, so they can then just put a little data processor in your slot. And anyway, in addition, it also has a travel time of about 15 minutes. So after, you know, I spent, oh goodness, for 2 Monsters, that was 15 minutes and 15 minutes on the drive. So that's half an hour down on my way out to work financially. And a lot of people will be like, well, how much enjoyment do you get out of the game? That's kind of how you have to average out, because you're paying like $1 an hour for enjoyment. And it's like, actually that game is costing you time. In terms of an attention economy, playing a game doesn't necessarily make you better at a skill in particular. Some people will argue eye-hand coordination, but what good is eye-hand coordination if its only application is for gaming? And in a lot of studies, that's what's actually shown by like the benefits of gaming. So anyway, back to the day in my life. As soon as I arrive at work, first thing I'm doing is waiting for that 30 minutes of freedom where I can choose where I want to eat, because for that 4 hours, I'm just kind of there and I am having to do whatever they ask for me. And I know you go, oh, well, you don't have to do whatever they ask. Okay, you say no. And reminder, they have control over your means of surviving within the world. So you saying no or standing against them, independent of whether or not you're right, is actually going to potentially cost you your job. You know, actually, on my way to work, I choose every morning to hit traffic so I can be about 3 to 5 minutes late. And that way I can just kind of test the waters, because if a job is gonna yell at me for 3 to 5 minutes late, I don't want to work there. That's not the kind of place I want to work. I've left jobs for less. It's just, We are talking about a day in the life. So at lunchtime for 30 minutes, I'm usually really excited. Lunch at a typical fast food place costs somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 to 15 bucks. And I go to Costco frequently, so my lunch is about $7 to $10, depending on whether or not I get the cookie. And some days you get the cookie, some days you don't. But the fruit smoothie and chicken bake, I mean, today I walked up and the lady, she had the hot dog bag, and I thought she had called my number, but it was the number before me. And the hot dog bag and the chicken bake bag looked kind of similar, and I had my headphones in, and so I wasn't really paying attention. And so she's like, you don't normally, you're not a hot dog and soda drinker. And then I was the next number, and yeah, it was a good time. I really enjoy, that's the thing, you go to Costco, and not only are you getting a deal on what you're paying for the food, but like the experience of being in the food court, it's just like, it's great. So after I get back to work, the last thing I do for the day is basically just wait to leave, and go about the rest of my day. And once I'm like out for the day, and let's see, so we've spent 30 minutes for lunch, and we're talking about 30 minutes of wages for that 30 minutes of lunch, so that's an hour of cost, and then that's plus the 30 minutes of cost from earlier, so that's an hour and a half of cost, plus the 8 hours worked, so that's 9.5 hours of cost, plus the 15-minute commute home. And then, I mean, you can never just go home. The thing is, you gotta like decompress a little bit. And I got 8 animal-sized mouths to feed, so it's hard sometimes. But, of course, it's always, I don't know. You come in and it's, no matter how work was, it's always just a joy to come home. And then I take Rowan for her walk. Sometimes I'm in a Zoom class, sometimes I'm not, depends on the day of the week. And after I am out at around like 5 or 6, I usually have about 2 hours until I have to start winding down for the day. And so I a lot of times will just kind of sit there and stare at my computer and think of all the things I could be doing that would make me maybe not have to live in this rat race existence where I'm never actually going to be able to climb my way out, because there's not upward mobility in a structure where they can like economically keep you suppressed from ever actually rising in your class. The mobility of an electronics technician working for a public school isn't very high when we live in a day and age that's looking to privatize everything, even though that privatization comes at the cost of like you're paying companies far greater overhead costs than you do for the trades workers who are working for those companies. But whatever. I don't run a school district. I just fix electronic circuits. It would be nice if I got paid enough that when I got home and had that like 2-hour window of free time. Actually, I forgot. Most nights I actually have homework, so I don't actually get to stare at the wall as often as I would like. I think about, sorry, I don't stare at the wall. I stare at my computer. Not like with a browser open or anything, just like the desktop window, because then it's like, do I want to do something for work, or do I want to do something to relax, or do I want to study for school, or how do I spend this little sliver of a window that isn't already committed to so much more? And how do I spend it in a way that allows me to become so much more? Because sometimes the cycle's rough, but that's not exclusive to trans people. And again, it's not to say trans people don't have a different experience, but the things uniting us at the bottom of capitalism are the reinforcement of the patriarchy emphasizes the necessity to abide by standards that we can't uphold for the benefit of others. It's a means of dominance and oppression by forming submission to the powers that be, because that submission grants you the capacity to exist. So you have to accept that there is some form of benevolence on the people in a position to oppress you and watch them oppress you. And if you say anything that even remotely sounds like a complaint, Well, hey, you can find a new job because nowadays jobs are written so that the employee is disposable and then they wonder why they're not able to retain employees. How about because if you want an employee that's going to be high quality and loyal, you have to get that employee and show them that you care about their well being. But companies don't do that. School districts don't do it. I mean, most of us are just trying to get by out of the fear that, like, we might one day be killed by this system. So, I think most of the time when I'm in that little window where I can actually freely think without the constraints of the world placed on me, I try to think of a world where we don't have to live like that. Because I think we can get there, and I don't know how, but there's gotta be a way. And honestly, I would much rather fight for that reality and be wrong than continue living in a reality where I feel powerless to do anything about the existence I experience. And the reason I chide men so much with regard to their position in relation to the patriarchy is because as a trans woman, I saw the definitive point in my life where male privilege no longer applied to me because I was no longer a man. The problem is that trans women don't experience male privilege, but then female privilege, the sort of benefits of womanhood and stuff, are another exclusive construct of the patriarchy. But I'm not here to solve that. I'm just here to talk about what I think of in the, I don't know, 15, 16 minutes I get to just kind of think. Because the world makes us run quite a bit. And I don't think we're meant to run like this. Maybe someday I'll know the answer, but I think for today, I'm just glad that I got to spend this time with you. Have a good one. Bye.